Trevor Noah, thank you so much for coming in and being here with us. I don't know if you've been told about this, but a couple of years ago we had a huge offsite with our entire marketing team, and we were trying to figure out what our brand is really like. And one of the questions that was asked, to the whole group was if Duolingo was a celebrity, was a person that is a celebrity, who would it be? And we really all agreed it would be you.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if this is a compliment. I don't know, but this is what we thought, and there's a number of reasons. I mean, you're multicultural, you're worldly, you make things fun. That's how we think about Duolingo. We try to make things fun. So thank you so much for sitting down with us today for Duocon.
Well, thank you very much for having me. As the person who uses Duolingo, I think I take that as a compliment. I mean, I hope that means I'll get a little bonus on all my scores when I'm going through my lessons. But I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to get anything in exchange. I'm just saying it would be nice if I got a little, maybe one extra life is all I'm asking for. And yeah, but thank you for that.
We'll protect your streak if you miss a day. We'll protect your streak just for you. So this is a question answer session where we have I have a number of questions and they're mainly about you. We want to find out things about you. I'll start with one about languages, which it's impressive. I didn't actually know about this. It seems that you speak 8 languages, which is quite a large number. Can you walk me through which languages you learned first and which ones you're most proficient in?
So this is a misconception, and I feel like somebody's trolling me on the internet. Every time I go do an interview, the languages increase. I do not speak 8 languages. I speak 5 languages. All right. The additional 3, I don't know where they come from, who's been spreading these lies. So I speak 5 languages. I speak English, obviously. I speak Afrikaans, which is an offshoot of Dutch. I speak Zulu. I speak Tswana. I speak Tsonga. And then I can dabble in German. My German's gotten really bad now because I haven't been practicing. I haven't been able to go to Germany. And I think immersion is one of the big things that helps you stick with the language. So those are like, I'd say 5.5-ish languages is what I can speak. And then I'm trying to learn Spanish now. And then the next one will be French. So I'm trying to get to 8. I do not speak 8 currently, 5.
Well, that's still really impressive. I have a question actually about Afrikaans, which this is just a question. Can you understand Dutch?
So I can understand Dutch. Afrikaans is a really interesting language because I think it's one of the youngest languages on the planet, actually. And I remember when I went to the Netherlands for the first time, the best description of Afrikaans for me from a Dutch person was, it sounds like a drunk child is trying to speak Dutch, is basically what Afrikaans sounds like to a Dutch person. So when Dutch people speak to me really slowly, as if I'm very drunk, then I understand everything they're saying. And then when I speak Afrikaans, they completely understand and they just think that I'm completely inebriated. But yeah, it's actually fascinating. And what's nice is because Dutch is part of the Germanic languages, I have an ear for others. So sometimes if I'm in Sweden, I can understand a few of the things people are saying. Yeah, even though I've never learned Swedish, I don't understand anything that's going on, but there are a few sentences and words here and there that I actually pick up on. So I guess Afrikaans has helped me in that regard. So I can understand a bit of Dutch. My German picks up quickly. And then if I'm in Scandinavia, there are things I can hear in and out of conversation.
Your comment about drunken speaking is exactly how I think. I'm a native Spanish speaker, and I think Portuguese sounds like drunken Spanish. Like, no offense to Portuguese speakers.
Oh, how can you say that, Luis? No meu país falamos português. How can you say that, Luis?
You even know some Portuguese. Oh wow, okay. By the way, there's this weird thing between Portuguese and Spanish where everybody who speaks Portuguese somehow speaks Spanish really well, but the other way around is just not true. And I don't know why that is, but it's always amazed me.
Well, here's what I found. The thing is, the originators of the languages are generally more snobbish, and so they don't learn like the street version of what their language creates. And so the people can go the other way around. But I've learned like Spanish speakers, they just refuse all of the shishes that come with Portuguese.
Yeah.
They just refuse all of it. And then Portuguese speakers are like, look, man, we're going to learn Spanish and we're going to learn Portuguese. And I think that's probably why it's easier for them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really dumb every time I'm in Brazil that all of them speak my language and I don't speak theirs. But I have there's in your book you shared a story about nearly being mugged by men who spoke Xhosa. Can you share more about that incident and how the language helped you out that day?
Yeah, well, I was, in South Africa, just like in many countries around the world, if you're going around to certain parts of town, you've got to be alert. You've got to be aware, because you could get mugged, you could get robbed, anything could go wrong. And so I grew up in a world where I always had to be hyper aware, even as a little kid. And so I don't know, I don't remember how old I was when this happened. I know I was a teenager, but I was walking through the streets and I was in a suburb, and there was a group of guys who were walking behind me, and they were gaining pace slowly, and at some point they were within earshot, and they were speaking to each other, and the guys were saying to each other in Zulu, I think it wasn't actually in Xhosa. In Zulu they were saying, okay guys, we're going to rob this kid and his friends. And my friends couldn't understand what they were saying, and I could. And I heard this guy, and I was like, man, these guys they're going to rob us. And I could hear the one saying to the other one, cross the street, and you're going to cut them off on this side, and we'll get them at the next block, and let's get ready, and blah blah blah, and blah blah blah. And I could hear them planning, who do they think has what, and who. And at some point I turned to the guys, and I forget exactly what I said, but I just turned to the guys and I basically just spoke to them. I was like, show my fit. My chance. And they were like, what's going on here? And then I said to them, I was like, hey, who are we gonna rob? What's the plan? And these guys just looked at me and they were shocked. And then the guy said, he apologized. He was like, hey, he's like, hard fit. And he's like, I thought you were like a white man. I thought you couldn't understand the language. Then I was like, no, I can understand everything here. And his face changed and his world changed. And you could see it was a small moment where he didn't see the other in the thing, and although obviously he was planning to like rob me, it was a weird humanizing moment where he saw me as someone as opposed to something, and his face changed, his demeanor changed, and him and his friends spoke, and they spoke to me, and then they left us alone and they walked away. And I think that was one of the few instances in my life where I learned like in a very real way how powerful language is, because it connects you to people in a way that very few other things can. It separates you, it takes away the class dimensions, it takes away racial dimensions, it takes away so many things. Because if you can speak to somebody in their language, and I mean, even in like the cadence, the street language, whatever it is that they use, if you can really speak to them in their language, they stop seeing you as the other. And that's what I've always loved about language, and why I always try and learn it.
That's a beautiful story. You know what's insane about it? I have a very similar story, but here in the US, almost being mugged. I'm from Guatemala, almost being mugged by two Guatemalans in the BART in San Francisco.
Wow.
And I heard them plotting, and I turned around and I asked them if they were from Guatemala, and they said yes. And then they were like, oh, you're from Guatemala too. And we bonded on that. Now, my answer was not as good as yours. I didn't say who are we going to rob. I was legitimately frightened. I thought they were going to actually rob me.
And then you spoke to them, and then all of a sudden it changed, right?
No, it completely. And the fact that we're from the same country, they're like, oh my God. And, afterwards, they were kind of asking me for recommendations for things.
They were asking you for recommendations on who to rob. Who do you think we should rob now, Luis?
I don't actually want to be friends with criminals, but hey. Cool. Well, let's see. Next question I have here is this. You're very funny in English. I mean, I personally find you very funny in English. Do you think you're as funny in other languages? Do you think there's a difference in how funny you can be in other languages?
Oh, definitely. I would argue that maybe I am the least funny in English. I feel like English is like a really stiff language. It doesn't allow itself much in the way of onomatopoeia, and it doesn't play. I don't know how to explain it, but like I find English is a very sterilized language in the way you say things and how they come out of your mouth. I'm sure you know this as a Spanish speaker. Like there are words in Spanish that come, they give so much when you express them. And so the same goes for African languages. When you say things in Zulu, when you say things in Tswana, it has such a spice to it that I think it really connects with the funny bones inside everybody, So when I perform my comedy, like when I'm in South Africa, there are things that I can say in other languages that I can't say in other parts of the world that I think are so much funnier. And so even when I try and write jokes in every single language that I'm trying to learn. So, I'll tell a joke in German, and I find that in German, that joke is so much funnier than I could be in English.
You can't possibly be saying that German is funnier than English.
Telling a joke in German, I think, is much funnier than English. Just because I don't know what it is. I think I think English is a very is a very boring language. Even though it's expressive, it's a very boring language, you know. And so what I do find is there are words, you know, like in German, like the word unglaublich is such a fantastic word, like unbelievable, whatever, unglaublich. You can hear that it just sounds like it. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's so many words in German that I think that connect with something in your brain that goes beyond your understanding. It's a special sound, and so I appreciate that in every language. So when I learn languages, part of the reason I learn it is because I feel like it opens up different parts of your personality and different parts of your brain that help you tap into different parts of funny and different ways of thinking.
Yeah, that's, you know, one of my favorite words in German is Warmduscher, which is it's kind of an insult. It's like you take warm showers. What a great insult! You don't have enough guts to take cold showers.
Oh man.
You know, one of the most difficult things about learning a new language is speaking it, and at a certain point you just kind of have to go for it and speak it. And you seem really good at this. I mean, even during this interview, you're just speaking just other languages that you yourself say you're not very good at. Do you think stand-up comedy has helped you with this? Do you think being able to do you think part of the reason you're so good at learning languages is because you just go for it?
I don't think so, actually. No, I think it was the other way around. I think maybe learning languages is why I got good at doing stand-up comedy. You know, I think I attribute all my language to my mom. So my mom speaks, I mean, she's out of practice now, but my mom speaks at least 9 languages. So,
Wow.
you know, she always learned languages from people. She was always adamant that she was just going to learn a person's language. And she never told me why, I guess, but she just did it. And so I absorbed that from her as a child. I would always watch her speaking to people in their language. She was always adamant about that. She'd always want to learn. And the biggest thing I learned from my mom was in order to be good at learning a language, you have to lose your ego. You can't maintain ego while learning another language, because in order to learn a language, you have to be a child. And children make mistakes the entire time when they're speaking. You know, the first 5-6 years of your life, you sound like the stupidest person on earth, but you don't know that, and you shouldn't know that, because that's how you learn a language. I think one of the biggest blocks in learning languages is that as adults, we're so afraid of being stupid, and we're so afraid of seeming as if we don't know, that we're afraid to say things and get it wrong. We want to pronounce things perfectly. We want to say things perfectly, and until we can, we don't want to speak the language. And I think that's what holds us back. So when it comes to language for myself, maybe that's the part that helps me, is I'm not afraid to look like a fool. You know, I say the thing, and then people will tell me, they'll go, no, that's not how you say it. Like I remember in Brazil, I was trying to say the word for my favorite kind of, like it's a little Brazilian cheese bread, right? And they call
pão de
it,
queijo.
yeah, pão de queijo. Pão de queijo. But then if I say it wrong, sometimes I say pão, and then it sounds like I'm saying another word, which is apparently like for like ass or a butt. And I didn't know this. So I would say pão, and then they would be like, no, pão. And I'd be like, pão. And they'd be like, no, pão. And I would just keep saying it. And they'd be like, you're running around Rio de Janeiro saying you want ass with cheese. And I was like, no, I'm trying to say like bread with cheese. And they were like, well, you got to stop saying it. I was like, I'm not going to stop. I'll just keep saying it until I get it. And in the meantime, I'll enjoy the experiences. And so I think that's the key to language, is just jumping in, enjoying the sounds of what's happening, and realizing that you're going to be an idiot. And that's, I think, another reason that language is so fun, because it humbles you. You know, in order to learn a new language, you have to humble yourself to the fact that you know nothing. Other people know more than you, and you start again as a child. And I think that's a wonderful experience.
The image, cheesy butt in Brazil, great image. I actually, this is kind of a little off to the side. I went to South Africa, and it actually reminded me quite a bit of Guatemala. There's a lot of similarities. I mean, obviously there's very big differences, but there's a lot of similarities in just seeing so much wealth right next to so much poverty.
Yes.
And it just and the barbed wire, like this is how I grew up too. And it's this amazing thing where I don't know, it just seemed pretty similar. And in the case of South Africa, it is pretty divided by languages. It's just like Guatemala is. But do you think there are examples where language has actually helped unite people in South Africa?
Oh, definitely. I've seen people. I've seen a big difference. So South Africa, for those who don't know, is a country where the majority of the population was oppressed for a very, very long time because of apartheid, which was a series of laws that separated people based on the color of their skin and even the culture that they were from. Now, what made South Africa interesting is because of this separation, you now had a single country that had 11 languages that were being spoken simultaneously. And so once the country achieved democracy, we were now in a place where nobody could decide which language would become de facto. And so the country chose English, but chose that all 11 languages would become official languages of the country, which had its pros and its cons. But what I have learned and what I have seen is those in the country who have been willing to learn languages beyond their own have found connections and have found ways to communicate with people who maybe wouldn't have seen themselves as friends or as colleagues or as neighbors without that happening. And so, I've seen one of the best things that's happened in South Africa is white people who for long were told that these languages were beneath them, learning these languages. I went to school with white kids who didn't have that burden of being taught racism, luckily. And many of them have embraced African languages because they're in Africa and they speak it fluently. And to see the joy on Black people's faces in South Africa when this happens is something that I don't take for granted, because it shows that, as I said, we are of the same. Yes, we have different skin colors. Yes, we've had different life experiences, but by speaking this language, we are of the same. And so I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I have seen language can achieve is it finds a way to connect people. It can show somebody that you are trying to connect with them, as opposed to not just having them meet you where you are, especially in a position of power, especially in a position where it's always been in your favor. I think that's where language I've seen, can be really powerful in South Africa, because it ingratiates you to people and it shows them that you don't just see them as an other, you're trying to make them and you and us.
Something I always been very curious about, because you see this in certain countries. Is it the case that in South Africa, Black people speak more languages than white people?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And this is a byproduct of colonialism. Around the world, a few countries traveled and they took over a bunch of places and they forced the people there to learn their language. They didn't really bother to try the opposite way around. And so what happened was, the curse became the gift. And that is just like in South America, just like in, all over the world, maybe even parts of Asia, you find that people learned the language of the colonizer, and then they also kept their languages, and then they had to learn languages of their fellow humans around them as well, because they had to communicate. And so out of that emerged a world where people were multilingual because they had to be. And then you find a class that had established themselves as the upper class did not understand languages, which has only come to hinder them, and I think will continue to hinder them as time goes on.
Yeah, you see that very clearly in Latin America, where the indigenous people from Latin America speak their language, also a few other indigenous languages, and also Spanish.
Exactly.
But usually the white people in Latin America, they speak Spanish only. You see that. Earlier we announced that we're going to have some upcoming language courses on Duolingo, and we're going to be including actually Zulu and Xhosa, two languages that you speak. Tell us what it means to you to see these two courses added to Duolingo.
I'm truly excited for Zulu and Xhosa as well. Xhosa because I want to start learning it and speaking it fluently, and then Zulu just so I can brush up while I'm not in my country.
Okay, well, speaking at least for Zulu, in Duolingo, we do not have insults in Duolingo because it's for all ages. In fact, people have offered to pay us money to have a whole, skill on insults, but we don't do that. But here we can bend the rules a little bit. Can you share your favorite insult in Zulu?
Oh wow, my favorite insult in Zulu. Do I have one? I'm trying to think if there's a favorite insult. They're all so mean. I don't even think of them as. Let me think of to be honest with you, I think my favorite insult is actually in Xhosa. And it's because my mom would always say it to me, and I think it's fantastic to say to anybody, which would be uisibhanqa, which is it's an idiot, but it's like it's a special type of idiot, So like my mom would say that to me like when I was just being naughty as a little kid. She'd be like, "Uy, pang somtanas," which means you're like an idiot of a child, but like it's not idiot as in like stupidity. It's more, it's like a combination of things. It's like a disaster is the best way to put it. You're a disaster of a human being, which I think is a fantastic way to insult another person. It's not just, don't insult them using their mom. Their mom did nothing to you. Don't insult them using their race. That's just lazy. Think about something creative. Them being a disaster as a human being. I think that's a fantastic insult for them.
What is it again?
Spanga somtana. Spanga.
Okay, I'm not even going to try that. I am not even going to try
Yeah,
that.
the click that's going to be interesting on Duolingo. You're going to need a whole section in class just to teach people about the clicks.
That's very hard to do. There's a few things like that in a few languages that are just very hard to do. Rolling R's in Spanish is another one that people just have a lot of trouble with.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, but that is a fantastic insult. I won't say it in Kosa, but I will. I'll just call people disasters, which is pretty great. Going back to kind of slightly more serious topics, in your book, you discuss living between dual identities and really feeling split between different worlds. And it's a feeling that I think is pretty familiar to people who are raised multilingual and to those who are immersed in learning a new language for the first time. Do you think there are any advantages of having this split identity that you grew up with?
Definitely. I think there are disadvantages and advantages to anything. I think if you grow up in a world where there is only one language and one identity, the advantage is that you always feel at home. And the advantage is I think you can feel more secure in the world because the world is always reflecting you. I think that's fantastic. The disadvantage is that you may grow up in a world where it's a bit homogenous, where you feel like everything is supposed to be you. And then you don't understand how to accept other ideas. You don't know how to augment your brain. You don't know how to shapeshift when it's appropriate, And I think that's where the gift and the curse flips for people who are multilingual. You grow up in a world where you very inherently understand there is no one way to perceive things or to say things or to do things because multiple languages are informing you. In order to understand language, part of it is you have to understand culture. So for instance, as a Spanish speaker, you have to understand where you're going to put the gendering in each thing. Is it a he or is it a she? Just even understanding that is part of the language. When speaking German, the Spanish I think would be the same, and with French and Italian, you can't just refer to. There's multiple yous. There's the important you, there is the stranger you, there is the familial you, there is the parent you. There are so many yous that you can use. And that, I think, tells you a little bit about culture. It's like, how do we treat people? Do I respect you as somebody I don't know? Do I give a different respect to somebody I do know? Is there familiarity that's joyful? I think these are things that are important to us as human beings. And I think those are gifts that can inform us. And so if you grow up with one language, can be good, but then the downside is you're not being exposed to all of these different ideas. When you grow up with multiple languages, you always know that there's another way to say or do a thing. And I think that sticks with you as a person. It makes it harder to feel like you're ever, fixed in one place in life, but life is always moving. So I think in time that'll come to reward you in the long term.
What's your second best language if you said English is your best language?
What is my second best language? It changes. It used to be Zulu. So it depends on which best friend I'm spending the most time with. So it used to be Zulu. And then it switched dramatically to Tswana. So Tswana is I think my second best language right now. It used to be Afrikaans because of school. We spoke it so much in school. It was our second language, and you'd speak it in South Africa. So yeah, it was Afrikaans, then it was Zulu, then it was Tswana. And I'll say now it's probably still Tswana. And then, I'll see from there. Depending on, my dream is to go live in some random country, in a few years, and then just make that my second language and become proficient.
Does it happen to you that do you use English words in Zulu? Do you speak like Zuluglish? I don't know. Is there a name for that?
Definitely, that's the best thing you can do. You just that's, I think, the joy. That's the real joy of language. If you can get into a world where you speak with people who speak all of the languages, man.
Yep.
It's like, it's the difference between a fruit and a fruit salad. That's what the difference is. It's being able to tap into any emotion and any idea that you need at any moment. I think that's like pure joy in language. So yeah, I love that. I love jumping into a language just to pick out one word or one phrase. So I could be speaking to you, and in the middle of that thing, like even now when I was in Greece, just learning those small little throwaway things that Greek people will do, just like ella, 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 just like they say things and they throw it out and they have fun with small words. I think those are great things to incorporate in language, even if you're speaking one predominant language, that you can start to almost to like build out your language, to fortify it into something that has a lot more character. So I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I have a lot of people here that speak Spanish, and I am a native Spanish speaker. And here we all speak Spanglish. That's what we speak. I mean, it's just half English, half Spanish. I think that's my native language now. I have a question. What language do you count in? Do you count in English?
Yeah, I count in English. It's funny enough, the one I count in, maybe just for fun sometimes, I count in German quite regularly now that you've asked me that. And
Wow.
That's the most random. I didn't even think about that actually. But it'll only be for like small numbers. But yeah. Yeah, like sometimes I'll just find myself being like, 20. And I don't even know why that happened.
And apparently the language you count on and the language you pray on are important. They're kind of very, very deep in there.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Okay, I have one last question, which is how much of your success do you attribute to luck or hard work? I mean, mainly it's kind of advice for viewers who would have the ambition to desire to lead a successful life like you have. So, just generally talk about that, because I find that very interesting.
So I would attribute 80% of my success to luck, 20% to hard work. I think far too many people negate how much luck affects your life. And when people think about luck, I think a lot of the time they think of things like winning the lottery. That's what people think of as luck. People don't think of luck being who you're born to. This decides everything, your lot in life, where you're born. You realize that if your mother just happens to be in America, for instance, all of a sudden your life will be on a completely different trajectory after you're born because you're now an American citizen. That's crazy lucky. Where did your parents meet? That's lucky. Where did they get married? That's lucky. What is their citizenship? That's lucky. You could be born into a war-torn region in the world. I don't care how hard you work. Your luck has determined where you're going to start in life. And so luck is a major thing in my world. I think about how lucky I am that I grew up, that I was born to a mother who was extremely progressive and always trying to grow and learn as a human being. She learned languages, so I learned languages. I was lucky. I'm lucky that my dad is Swiss, German, so now here I have this different influence in my life, in my mother's life. He taught her different things that she would have never had access to had she not met him. That's luck for me. I'm lucky that my mother is part of the Xhosa tribe, because Xhosa people were taught English by a lot of missionaries when the apartheid government in South Africa refused to teach English to black people in the country. That was luck. Luck is the fact that apartheid ended before I had to go to school. That's lucky. I mean, if it never ended, I would have been stuck in a school where I wasn't allowed to do math or geography or science or anything. So that's luck. So all of these things are luck. When does the world open? Where do you travel? The fact that I spoke English as a first language, that was luck. And so as much as people like to think that hard work is everything, yeah, that 20% is how you convert your luck into a tangible result. Don't get me wrong. Without that 20%, I would argue the 80% is almost worth nothing, because luck is something that has to be actioned upon. People don't seem to realize that. They go, oh, you're so lucky. Yes, but you have to be somewhere. You have to show up. You have to be prepared. That's how you action the luck. And so for anybody out there, I'll always go like, please acknowledge the luck that you have, but work your ass off to turn it into something. Because if you don't, that luck is worth nothing. And so going back to the lottery ticket, you have to actually play the lottery to win it. You have to actually pick the numbers to be part of the lottery. Don't go play the lottery, because the chances are you're not going to win. It's all a waste of your money. I'm just using this metaphorically. I'm just saying in life, you cannot win if you don't play the lottery. In real life, you cannot win the lottery if you play, for most people. So maybe this is not the best metaphor, but I think people understand what I'm saying.
Well, Trevor Noah, thank you so much for being with us here. It's been a true honor, certainly for me. I'm a humongous fan of everything you've done. Certainly a humongous fan of The Daily Show. So thank you for spending time with us.
And thank you very much, Luis. Muchas gracias. Thank you for taking the time. And to everybody that works at Duolingo, Nikenzan Gofu, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate you. Dankeschön to everyone who set up those first courses. I appreciate that. And muito obrigado to the real speakers out there. I see you.
Thank you.